Next up, we got a very cool video, and we'll be essentially talking about how to tell if you are meditating correctly. And so this comes from chapter 4 of Mastering Meditation. This chapter is titled Level 1 Mastery. So we'll recap really quickly what that is. It's broken up into 4 parts. The first one being HRV, resonant breathing, which I feel like I've talked about in like every single video in this series leading up to this one. But in case this is someone's first video seen in this series, I'll recap it in a second really quickly what that is. 2 is sitting very still. Another thing I covered 1 or 2 videos ago, but in case you haven't seen it, I'll recap that too. And then 3 is watch for the 4 proofs. And we'll spend the majority of this video kind of digging into that part. And then 4 is enjoy and let go. So first up, HRV, resonant breathing. What is it? It's essentially a technique where you want to try and sync up your heart rate with your breath rate. And to do this is very easy, actually. All you want to do is slow your breath rate down to be no more than 7 breaths per minute, which I feel should be very, very doable for the extreme majority of people out there. Some other things to point out is you want to make sure that your exhale is at least a little bit longer than your inhale. And something that I found to be very beneficial for this is you can put in earplugs, which makes it just that much easier to hear and kind of sense and feel your heartbeat. And then notice how on the exhale, your heart rate slows down a little bit. And then on the inhale, it speeds up a little bit, and that should have you covered there. 2, sitting very still. Pretty self-explanatory. Some cool things that he pointed out in the earlier video that I covered is because you don't want to move, you should spend some time really making sure that you're comfortable in your seated position so you don't gotta move around because shit, your back hurts, for example, like what happens to me. Kind of on that note, when I meditate, I like to do something that basically every meditation teacher out there would recommend against doing, is I like to lie down or be reclined when I do it. And that, has one really good benefit, that being it's very easy to stay very still in that position, right? I don't get too uncomfortable, my back doesn't start to hurt. But it does have some huge drawbacks as well. Chief among them being it's going to drastically increase the chances of you falling asleep, or maybe even if you don't fall asleep, it can kind of just make you a bit more lazy, in your head, so you won't be really doing the meditation thing properly. But another problem with it, which is something that I didn't realize until he covered it in this book, is to try and get your breath rate nice and slow. You want to be doing these full belly breaths, right? You want to give your lungs the maximum amount of space to move. So when you're lying down and you have your back against the bed or a couch or something reclined, you're restricted on your back. You can only go like forward and to the sides, as opposed to when people do the classic meditative seated position, right? They're not on a chair. They don't have a backrest. So that gives their rib cage and their lungs the maximum space to really expand and get a nice full breath in. So, just something to play around with there. If you've never tried lying down to meditate, well, go ahead and give it a shot. See how it works. The main thing is just make sure you can reach that slow breath rate of 7 breaths per minute or less. Okay, then we have the 4 proofs of like biofeedback, essentially. So what are those? First one is hands hot and heavy. That's a hilarious name, but makes me laugh for some reason. 2 is lips tingle. 3 is ecstatic pressure on the dorsal vagal. And then 4 is skin tingles. So for the first one, hands hot and heavy. So I guess our hands are always, perspiring to some small degree, maybe to a large degree if you're one of these people with really sweaty hands. But as you're starting to meditate and you're lowering your stress levels and getting more relaxed, that will slow down. So your hands can actually start to feel warm or potentially even hot. Now, this isn't something that I was able to easily notice in my own practice. I can find it, but I also can't really tell if that's me just kind of placeboing myself and making myself feel it. But nonetheless, that is something that you could be paying attention to. 2, lips tingle. So what you can notice too is you can eventually get to where your whole body's tingling, but he's pointing out how one of the first places you might notice it would be in your lips, and in particular, your lower lips. So I can't find this, but I can also find this body tingling sensation to be going all over the place. 3, ecstatic pressure on the dorsal vagal. So for this one, he actually has a little technique thing that you can try during your meditation, where you take a shorter breath in, and then you do essentially as long of an exhale that you can do comfortably. And what this does is it really can get this whole tingling sensation thing going, which is number 4, the skin begins to tingle. So this will begin to create a tingling sensation in the skin. You first feel this in that part of the body which is most relaxed. You might feel it in your arms, in your hands, in your chest or legs, or perhaps your face. Soon it will spread coolly and pleasantly throughout the whole body. So this is something that I stumbled into totally on accident many years ago when I was really getting into my meditation practice. And as I've covered it on the channel before, not really knowing what to call it, I would just call it my body buzz meditation. And like I first stumbled into this while doing a float tank or sensory deprivation tank session. And for me, I can most of the time first feel it in my extremities, like my arms and my legs. But I can also find it pretty early on, like my lower abdomen. And something else that I've covered in previous videos, he doesn't talk about it at all in this book, but if as you're doing the exhale, you can kind of flex your coming muscle. I used to know the name of this muscle, but I forget it now. And I believe this works for both men and women, although I know it works for men. At the bottom of that exhale, you kind of flex that muscle and it can get that tingling sensation going, particularly like in your lower abdomen area. And then I just keep returning back to that feeling on every exhale. And then eventually you get this whole, skin tingling sensation to be buzzing throughout your whole body. And it's pretty damn pleasant just to sit in. And so a lot of times I'll use that exclusively as my object of attention for the meditation. However, we'll wrap it up with this. Any of these sensations provides you proof that your meditation is a complete success. As you continue to practice resonant breathing, the feeling may become stronger and stronger. These proof become your biofeedback, which indicates that your practice is correct and everything is working. So he points out there how you don't need to necessarily get all 4 of these proofs. You can focus on just one of them, and that can be your proof that your meditation is going in the correct direction. So that was very cool. I hope you guys liked it. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Until the next video, keep your meditation practice legit. I just realized that I did not cover step number 4 in level 1 mastery, that being enjoy and let go. Pretty self-explanatory, honestly, but just to wrap this all up in one video, I'll add it in now. And so he writes, often when training a student from another system, I will ask him to place HRV resonant breathing before his normal technique in order to establish one or more of the 4 proofs. With the 4 proofs, you suddenly have an unparalleled tool to check your meditations. No matter what system of contemplation you adopt, you can check to see if it is consistently awakening your parasympathetic. This is the entry point to all spiritual awareness. Success! Now sit back inside yourself and enjoy these wonderful gifts that you have discovered. Enjoy your proofs. Soak them into yourself, into your bones, and into your mind. Revel in them. Now, for the first time perhaps, you can truly enter into just being. Well said. All right, that wraps it up.